And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reedsy Live. My name is Martin. I'm part of the team here at Reedsy. I'd like to welcome you to today's feature presentation, which is the return of First Line Frenzy. It's the 14th First Line Frenzy we've done here on Reedsy Live. If this is your first time, then a bigger welcome to you. It is a live event where we invite writers to submit the first lines of their books, stories, and we bring on an editor from Reedsy, Rebecca Heyman, the creator of First Line Frenzy, and she'll blind react to them, critique them, give suggestions for how to improve them. If you are just tuning into this now and haven't submitted a first line, I'm afraid that window has passed. We sent out a newsletter last week asking people to send them in. We've received around 2,000, and I spent a good chunk of this afternoon assembling a wardrobe and also running about picking some of these lines. So, but don't worry, picking these lines has had my full attention, but I've just moved into a new home recently, and there is still a certain amount of furniture construction to be done. But anyway, I picked a whole bunch of lines that we're going to try to get through as many as we can in an hour. There's going to be a sort of a selection of genres, of types. These aren't necessarily, as you'll find out, there's no rhyme or reason to the lines I picked. If you don't get picked, it doesn't mean I think you're terrible. If you get picked, it doesn't mean you're terrible. Doesn't mean it's the best. Doesn't mean it's the worst. There's not a competition. This is just a wonderful opportunity for us to learn from a fantastic editor and see what it's like to create a first line that has a big old impact. Umar says that they never received the newsletter. If you go to blog.reedsy.com, you can sign up for Reedsy's newsletter. It comes out most weeks. If I'm doing my job right, it comes out every week, but every now and again I let it slip, I'm afraid to say. But we shall start this thing in just a few minutes. I'm glad to see everyone's letting me know where they're coming from. Let's see a sort of a smattering. We have Happy December from Hughes in Boston, Massachusetts. Diane from freezing London and Ontario. Laura from Malaga, Spain. Oh dear, I've left my Slack on at work and it's buzzing off my ear. Go away, work notifications. We have DL Dobbs from Texas in the United States. Russell from Everett, Washington. Wild from Las Vegas. I was just in Las Vegas less than a month ago attending a self-publishing conference. It was crazy. It was mad. It was a really fantastic, learned a lot of things, but Vegas itself was one hell of a town. Gail Ledger's first time author. Very excited. We're happy to have you here, Gail. Mike from Columbia, Illinois. Dr. Martin Stein greets us. Hello, writers. Karen McDermott from Hove in England. The sister or twin city or town with Brighton. Sorry. We have Michael from Draper, Utah. Tom Martin says it was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. That feels like a reference I should know. We have Mary from Indiana, Deborah from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Kathy B from Niagara on the Lake, Canada, but currently in Madeira. Oh, Ariana from Belgium, Martin from Signal Mountain, Tennessee. Great name for a town. We have Steve Eccles from Oban in Scotland, also a lovely town. Great seafood shack by the ferry terminal. Paul, working on book 3 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, good to see so many of you joining today. Do remember to give this a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you like content about writing books and listening to me, then you're going to love it. If you don't, you are going to hate this channel, because it turns out I am all over it now. Larry from Philadelphia, welcome one, welcome all. It is now the top of the hour. I am going to bring on our guest, our host, our benefactor. She is the creator of First Line Frenzy, a fantastic editor from here at Reedsy. If you need only the best, then search out Rebecca Heyman. Rebecca, how you doing?
I'm so well after that introduction. Thank you.
Oh, I'm really glad to have you. Someone, it was pointed out to me that we haven't had you on for quite a while. We've done a few things. You've recorded a video for us, but the FLF loyal are clamoring for more of this.
Yes, the Legion are here and they're ready, and I am too. I miss doing these. This is like one of my favorite formats to do First Line Frenzy with. So I'm excited to see what you've chosen for me.
Oh yeah. So before I sort of start this, would you perhaps give your spin on what this is all about?
Yes, I understand from your intro that we have some first timers, so welcome. Welcome to everyone, my veterans and my noobs. So, First Line Frenzy is a community learning project for writers, and that's a really important frame for all of the work we do together here today. Um, this isn't about ego or judgment or my personal feelings necessarily. It's really about looking at First Lines as a microcosm of all the craft, all the writing in your book. So we look for something that captures our attention. We look for something that makes us want to keep going, keep reading. And when we don't find it, we try to break down why, right? A lot of what we do in First Line Frenzy is about getting specific about what is working and what is not working. So it's important to do both.
Cool. And with that in mind, I've pre-selected these. Becca has not seen them at all. For me, I just try to get a range of different genres, but then I've sort of muddled it up in between. So if we get a few from the same genre back to back, you'll have to forgive me for that. All right. Are we good to go?
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Well, here is the very first one. This is the only one I sort of handpicked, only because it's seasonal. But here we go.
The two boys had ridden their bikes to the town rubbish dump to search for Christmas presents. Oh, I find this very charming. I'm wondering why we have the two boys instead of named characters here. Is this children's or is this adult?
I believe it's adult. It is listed as general fiction.
So maybe these boys are, this is going to get so dark so fast, but maybe these boys are going to meet their demise at the dump, so it doesn't matter what their names are. I don't know. Even if that's the case, we do want to name characters, even if they are not long for this literary world. But I find this quite charming. I'm looking at it again just to see. Rubbish dump, is that so? In the United States, we would just say the town dump, but is rubbish dump the like more colloquial term in the UK? Would you say?
We'd say the dump, or we might say the tip. Like rubbish dump, I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't. I would say that's a bit
It's
unnecessary.
redundant, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so because like we don't put like prized possessions necessarily in the dump. So I think town dump works just fine. Of course, rubbish does cue that this is not taking place in the United States, which is just fine. It's great to activate setting using those little regional or national language choices. I do appreciate that. But rubbish dump is, of course, a bit redundant. So I would say Name and Name had ridden their bikes to the town dump to search for Christmas presents is a slightly stronger, more specific opening, but I think this is definitely headed in the right direction.
Cool. That was from Marilyn Filewood, and the title there was Artemis House. Thank you for sending that one in. Let's move swiftly on to number two, which comes from Adele Lyles.
Killing Tiffany Radcliffe had been on my agenda since freshman year, so when I received my instructions, I'm locked in. Hmm. I mean, I love the first half of the sentence. I think things go a little sideways after so. For me, killing Tiffany Radcliffe had been on my agenda since freshman year is in itself quite a strong opening. I don't necessarily, I get a little confused after that because it seems like this is on our narrator's personal agenda, but then receiving instructions makes it seem as though the directive comes from outside. And so, is this a personal vendetta or is it a professional hit or is it a little bit of both? I don't know, but I think um, that question is too complicated to address in a single line. So I would probably cut this off after the word year and I would save the remainder of this information for later in paragraph one or page one.
Cool. That is from Eliminated, a piece of young adult fiction from Adele. Thank you, Adele, for sending that one in.
Wonderful. Young adult murders. Okay.
That's good.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I'm sort of, yeah, my mind is going to a few different places where this could go, and all of them are interesting. The
Yeah.
next one here is from Abdeslam Jakjoud, and it's called Cacophony.
Ooh. The darkness was oppressive, an absolute black velvet shroud that absorbed all light around Jonas, leaving him disoriented and blind to anything beyond the tip of his nose. So this is a lot of language devoted to something you establish in the first phrase. The darkness was oppressive. I don't really know that we need you to unpack darkness in such specific terms. Absolute black, um, velvet, right? Another quality of this darkness. Shroud, absorbed all light, blind to anything beyond the tip of his nose. Like, we get it, it's very dark. I just, this is a lot of language and a lot of precious first line real estate to devote to something that you took care of in the first four words, right? So give me more than Jonas in the dark, because that is basically a character doing nothing and just existing in circumstances that you've described really acutely. So I would rather see you establish the darkness and then touch and go, like get off that train and move on to something more interesting, something like conflict, like why Jonas is, in this oppressive dark. Give us some sense of where he is, not just how it is where he is.
Cool. Thank you, Abdeslam, for sending that one in, of the genre mystery, thriller, and suspense.
I mean, it
All right.
definitely nails the genre, right? Like, we were not confused about what
Yeah.
this was going to be.
The next one is from a genre not covered so far, from Anne Dashwood.
That's a great name. The suffocating ballroom had driven Miss Verity Fairfax to commit the unthinkable act of fleeing. I think act of fleeing is I'm where you're losing me a little bit. That that's a progressive verb, right? Ing. The fleeing is ongoing, but is it, or has she done it? Like, if she has fled the ballroom, then she's no longer fleeing. She's somewhere else. So I think I like the way you slow build the idea of committing the unthinkable, right? There is a certain stuffiness to the syntax here, the order of words in the sentence that mimics the suffocating ballroom. I like that we are making a connection between place and action, right? She has to leave because the ballroom is suffocating. And of course, you're establishing this wonderfully familiar sort of Georgian era social propriety. So that gives us a clue about the rest of the book here. But I think maybe a little bit of rewording right at the tail end there to indicate whether the act of fleeing is ongoing or if she has already fled to another place. That could be the ticket, right? Commit the unthinkable act of, fleeing to the garden or fleeing to the hedge maze or, whatever, wherever she is. I just think ending on that progressive verb is not helping the music of this sentence.
Um, this is, as you can imagine, romance is from a book titled A Tolerable Marriage, which
Yeah, it sounds like
is
historical
good.
romance, which is one of my favorite genres. So
Yeah, it does have that
good
sort of
job.
Georgian feel to it.
It does. Yeah, when we're talking about suffocating ballrooms and social norms, we know where we are in history. Regency era, Georgian era, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's a good market that there's a lot of demand for. But I guess it is also very competitive in that sense as well. There's a lot of it around. I think, as you mentioned, quite partial to that sort of era of Regency romance.
I go through phases. I've been reading more contemporary romance lately, um, for no particular reason. I don't know. But yeah, it is a crowded space, but it's a crowded space because there are a lot of readers for
Yeah.
romance generally and historical romance specifically. So, keep putting in the good work because there are a lot of readers out there who want that.
Cool. The next one here comes from VJ Gorsky. Here we go.
Grief and guilt go hand in hand, difficult to separate, and even harder to let go. Well, it's a bit of a fact cake. For those new to First Line Frenzy, fact cakes are sentences that don't provide context via character or conflict. They just make statements. This statement has some subtlety, the idea that grief and guilt are both difficult to separate and difficult to let go of, but neither one of those observations is grounded in character or conflict. And so for me, this is not a particularly successful line. It also violates one of my sort of first line no-nos, which is we really don't want to start with generalizations. Um, the idea that grief and guilt are difficult to separate and even harder to let go is maybe true for everyone, but maybe not. And so I would rather see you ground this observation or this set of observations in character, right? Like Jane in the last year, Jane had discovered that grief and guilt go hand in hand. M dash difficult to separate and even harder to release. Let go is you're sort of changing your grammatical modality there. So you need a verb that is also in the infinitive, to separate and to something. I know to let go is also in the infinitive, but it just doesn't land for me as nicely. So I would say go down to a single M dash after hand in hand, establish a character who is having these thoughts and bringing us into their experience, and ease some of that awkwardness in the infinitive there. Yeah, that's a start. But I really need to see. I think a character needs to own these sentiments for them to be particularly effective.
Cool. That one is from a fantasy book, The Griffin Moonstone, book 3 of the Moonstone Legacy. Uh, cool, awesome. The next one is from Adina Glickman, and this is a heads up that it is a children's book.
Good to know. Thank you. The first thing you wonder when you step inside Genius Best's house is whether the 200-year-old parquet floors might collapse under the maze of exercise machines and racks of free weights and kettlebells lining the walls. Uh, well, it might not be the first thing I wonder. And so, just like the previous sentence, I want you to give this sentiment over to an actual character, right? The first thing um, Jack wonders when he steps inside Genius Best's house is whether the 200-year-old parquet floors might collapse under the maze of exercise machines, comma, lose the and, racks of free weights, comma, and kettlebells lining the walls. So a little bit of grammatical nuance needed in the list toward the end. And again, bring in the specificity of a character, especially for young readers who need to connect to a character immediately in order to stay engaged. And I do have a 6-year-old reader at home and an 11-year-old reader at home. So, in addition to this being just good advice, I watch them read and I see what they connect to. And you really need to establish those characters sooner than soon for young readers. Yeah, that was a good change you made toward the end, but we need more.
Someone asks, I wonder who names their kid Genius. Probably the same sort of person who changed their family name to Best.
Yeah, and isn't that an interesting question, right? Like that's the right kind of question that we want. In some ways already that sentence establishes almost like an Ishmael complex where like Ahab is really the protagonist of Moby Dick, but Ishmael is the narrator. And I get a similar vibe from that in the sense that the force of nature might not be our narrator, might not be the person walking into the house. It might be Genius Best. And that's okay. That can make the narrator a very powerful person.
So what do you reckon the impact of Call Me Ishmael is? Is it sort of like, call me Ishmael, but don't worry, I barely figure into this?
I mean, he does figure in, right? And of course, that book in particular has given rise to the lone survivor. Like that is the lone survivor genre paragon in a lot of ways. So what do I think of Call Me Ishmael? Well, it's a fact cake, right? Call Me Ishmael. But it also it establishes a little bit of unreliability. It's not my name is Ishmael, it's Call Me Ishmael. And we could unpack Ishmael as a biblical name and as a biblical figure for a long time if this were a Moby Dick seminar, but it's not. So I would say it's a very interesting first line. I love Moby Dick, and I studied it sort of extensively in grad school. So I'll call you later. We can talk about it.
Oh, okay. Cool. Well, we have our next one here. It is from MJ Di Lorenzo.
Hmm.
Oh, and it is not shown on screen.
The only thing Xander's watch had ever done was tell the time, and now, as the ground below drew closer, even that was a useless feature. I'm not sure what else we expect a watch to do. Do you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, the only thing Xander's watch had ever done was tell the time. Well, that's, to my knowledge, precisely what a watch is supposed to do. So I guess Xander might not seem so disappointed. And now, as the ground below drew closer, even that was a useless feature. Well, if we're plummeting toward the ground, I would say, yeah, knowing the time doesn't matter very much, unless there's something to do with timing uh, that is relevant here, but I can't imagine what it might be.
Yeah, because I know that this is. I can see from here that it's science fiction. So if the intention was that they had some sort of special watch that should be able to do other stuff, there's something in the sentence that doesn't really let that on.
Yeah, it's a little too simplistic, right? A watch is only supposed to tell the time, but a watch that's supposed to do other stuff might not just be called a watch, right? Like the only thing Xander's glibberty glubber had ever done was tell time, right? And now that he was plummeting toward the earth, that was a useless feature. But like, there's this sentence isn't doing the work you need it to do in order to support this moment, which is
Hmm.
an interesting moment to begin, right? It's a moment of action and tension, and I see what you're doing, but I'm not sure focusing on the watch being a watch is the right call.
Yeah. Yeah. From what I see, is like I guess this is the world building, but if you're just going into it cold, yeah, you're just being asked some questions.
What do you mean?
I mean, like you're a bit asking questions of like, oh, I guess the watch is like crucial to this. Is
Yeah,
it
I
hopefully
was like,
about the watch?
who's looking at a watch when they're, supposedly falling to the ground? I don't know.
Hmm.
I also would like to know the height from which this person is falling, you know? Like that feels like a relevant detail.
There's something in there. But thank you, MJ Di Lorenzo from Wild Abandon Science Fiction. The next one here coming up, it is non-fiction.
Oh, before I lived in the US, I believed I had a solid understanding of American culture. Yeah, I mean, for me, this means that I'm about to get sort of some examples of American culture that baffled you when you moved here. And so I'm intrigued by that. I think I would be more intrigued if you just dove in and hit us with one of those cultural disconnects right away, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm, of course, blanking on an example right now. I'm trying to think of something distinctly American. I'll ask you this. Do a lot of folks who celebrate Christmas in the UK do inflatable lawn ornamentation?
I've seen one here, and that stands out.
Yeah, okay. So something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like before, like though I assume though prior to my emigration, I believed I had a solid understanding of American culture. Nothing could have prepared me for the alarming quantity of inflatable Christmas decorations on front lawns,
Hmm.
across Massachusetts or whatever. Something really specific that just goes, oh, like, oh, is that not normal everywhere? So I think that would be more charming, more specificity here. I frequently call for more specificity in First Lane Frenzy, and this is definitely one of those times.
Yeah, I think in general, actually, when it comes to picking stuff, I go through quite a lot, and the ones that I do tend to leave out are the ones with like zero specifics in them, because like there are a lot of them where it sort of goes like, when I woke up that morning, I didn't expect what was to come next, because
Yeah,
there's a
okay.
lot of
Starting
them
with the
just like
wake up.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Starting with the wake up and then like just blatant like foretelling of what's to come instead of just taking up to that change moment. Yeah, I mean we talk about that a lot on these broadcasts. And I think that's a perfect example of like you're on the right track. I mean that can be a really funny, clever way to begin, especially if that's some kind of memoir. But get right to it. Like there's no reason to preface it with this sort of throat clearing sentence. Just get to the thing instead of talking around the thing.
Cool. I've got the next one lined up here, but I'll tell you one cultural specific that I discovered was really everyone else in the world finds really weird about Americans is that you don't have electric kettles. Everyone else in the world has an electric
Excuse
kettle
me.
in. It is
We have an
it is some
electric
sort of
kettle.
is some absolute curio that I don't know only
No, this
Anglophiles
is
and
not
elites
true.
have.
Everybody I know has an electric kettle.
In your turn, I know, but like it just seems like it is like not a common thing that
We are,
everywhere
I
else
guess,
it is
yeah,
the
like you have
thing.
to be a tea drinker to have an electric kettle. My husband is a big tea drinker. I'm not,
Yeah.
but Dan drinks a ton of tea, so we have an electric kettle. I understand that some Americans microwave their water, which I would like to go on record as saying I also find repellent. So it's not all of us.
Yeah. That is crazy. It is. I think maybe this crowd we're having a sort of half people. Yeah, I've got an electric kettle to people who have the concept boggles the mind. Anyway, on to the next one we have here. It is from Asna, and yeah, here we go.
Okay. Mr. Myers knew something was wrong when the doorbell didn't ring at 3 o'clock that night. So, so 3 o'clock is not a night time. 3 o'clock is either an afternoon time or an early morning time, but it is not a night time. So,
Hmm.
meep. I don't know what to tell you. That time does not exist. Mr. Myers knew something was wrong when the doorbell didn't ring at 3 o'clock that night. I like that. It's a change moment. It's a gentle change moment, right? And I like that this sentence. Here's what the sentence doesn't do. The doorbell rang at 3 o'clock in the morning every morning until it didn't. You're going womp womp. This is a
Hmm.
much better version of that. But I think knowing something is wrong can be an embodied experience. Uh, Mr. Like how does Mr. Myers experience this anxiety or this worry? I think you could get more specific by offering us a more concrete embodied experience of this feeling, right?
Hmm.
Of dread or foreboding or worry. Like, what does it feel like in your body? Is it tightness in your chest? Like, Mr. Myers thought he might be having a heart attack until he realized the tightness of his chest corresponded to the absence of, you know, the doorbell ringing at its appointed time or whatever. Like, show us how the anxiety manifests. I think that could be sort of a cool opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah. That's yeah. So sort of put you in Mr. Miser's skin, unless
Yes.
yeah, unless there's another Law and Order moment. He's about to either die or witness a murder. But even then, I guess he could still be
I
in his
don't
in his
think he
shoes.
is. Yeah, like I think whoever was supposed to ring the doorbell maybe is in trubs. But I don't
Uh,
think Mr. Myers is in trouble. That's just my like, gut feeling.
well, hopefully. Well, thank you. That was from Asna. Mystery, thriller, suspense, nightmares that kill. I like the title.
Ooh, 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 that just gave me a chill. Yeah, that's a good title.
Uh, James asks, for the future, can these types of submissions be edited before reviews? No.
No, no, that
This
is
is
that
a.
is zero fun. Yeah, seeing them off the cuff is part of why we do this work together. Yeah, that's all I'm
Yeah,
gonna say
like
about that.
it's not. Yeah, it's not precisely a line editing sort of thing, but it is sort of
Yeah,
important to see how you write.
yeah, I think there is a common misconception among my first line frenzy community that like, well, not really. I mean, it's not a common misconception. A lot of you understand this. This is not like a free editing exercise, right? Like you are welcome to hire me at any time to edit your book, but this is more about community learning, and so to edit them in advance takes away some of that. I think being able to hear live how my brain processes these lines can be really useful in helping you look at your own work and say, what am I doing here? Or why am I doing this here? So that's why we don't edit them in advance.
Cool. Our next one here is from Brian Libby. No title so far.
Okay. Oh, this is very long, Brian. I have concerns. Um, Chet Streebach was flicking the onions out of his tuna fish sandwich with a toothpick and bouncing his client Crystal Carlisle's toddler on his thigh when Crystal crashed her Toyota Corolla through the front wall of Chet's office. Oh, oh dear. I am being buried alive under details. There's so much, so many proper nouns, and so much strange specificity. Um, I, I'm not, I'm not sure why you would be doing these things at the same time. Flicking the onions out of his tuna fish sandwich with a toothpick and bouncing a toddler on his thigh. Well, I think I'm just like a little stunned. There's just too much. There's too much, too much. I'm not going to try to uh like untangle this because it's very tangly. We have to
Hmm.
Gordian knot this thing and just slice through it. Um, Chet Struback was flicking the onions out of his tuna fish sandwich with a toothpick when Crystal crashed her Toyota Corolla through the front wall of his office. That's it. I mean, I just, we can't with the bouncing the toddler on the thigh and it's her toddler and then we have to rename everybody's and then we need everybody's proper nouns again. It's exhausting. I'm tired. Don't do that.
Yeah, because I guess
Flicking
that
the
sort of
onions.
bit. Yeah, when
Yes, that's
Crystal,
much
whatever.
better.
Yeah.
Yes. And like also it just stresses me out to think about this child being in the path of danger this way. So like maybe just skip that.
Like, yeah, it feels like unless it's mega, it shouldn't be mega plot essential, I suppose. Like,
Hopefully like the harming, like the passive harming of a child should not be essential to anybody's plot.
yeah.
So yeah, I just it's too much. And so when you streamline it to this, what you've put up here, Martin, is quite good and quite compelling. Weirdly specific, the tuna thing. Everybody know is it tuna salad? Because everybody knows there's onions in that unless he made it himself. Um, and if not, then like it shouldn't be hard to just remove the onion. So this whole toothpick situation, that well, you've gotten rid of it, thank goodness. But like
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I understand,
But
but
there
it's a
was a lot of
lot.
there's a lot of business. A person sitting there. There was a tuna fish sandwich picnic with a toothpick in one hand. On the
There's
other
rope
side, there's a
onions.
child. There's a onions. Then there, you know that there's a client, and then there's specifically a Toyota Corolla through the front wall of his office.
It's
There's
got
a
to be
lot
a
of this
Corolla.
belonging to that, and yeah, I love the specificity of Toyota Corolla. But
Yeah,
yeah, as you
that's
say,
fine.
there's a
Keep
lot.
that. But you can't keep it all. You can't. You can't keep it all because it's just very tiring. Just seeing that wall of text, like I needed like a small map. You know,
But
too
cool.
much.
I think this will work. Brian, thanks for sending that in. Classified under general fiction. This next one is from Chris Norbury.
Earning $50 to stand guard outside a warehouse for 20 minutes sounded like a sweet deal for a kid like me until I was actually there with dad at midnight. Okay, we need a comma after me.
Da-da.
I don't know if we need to know that his dad is there. Maybe just until I was actually there.
At midnight?
No, until I was actually there. Because like the idea of the time can come to us in a more dynamic way, right? Like it can be like this the time can be one of the things that contributes to why it's not awesome, why it's not a
Hmm.
sweet deal, right? Or like the shadows at midnight were longer and darker than I had anticipated. Something like that.
Yeah.
So like the time, we don't have to tell all of our facts. We can incorporate some of those scene setting, world building minutia into more dynamic sentences that build character, right? So like this inspires a question, which is why wasn't the sweet deal you thought it would be? And then subsequent sentences can give us the why by nurturing character and setting at the same time.
We have a
And I,
question here. Why add the comma? Is it for readability or is it grammatically required?
well, if we go back to the original, um, you know, it becomes this sort of run-on monstrosity if we keep it all without a comma. Um, Sounded like a sweet deal for a kid like me, and that initial clause. And then until I was actually there with dad at midnight is sort of like its own modifying clause. I would have to sort of um, check myself before I get into like the super nitty gritty of this grammar. But for me, it was sort of instinctively grammatical and subjectively for clarity.
Hmm.
So I suspect there's a good grammatical reason, and just like my instincts say that is true. But I think really it's that we have a complete clause that ends after me. And so if we're going to continue the sentence, we probably need a comma.
Yeah. Uh, let's see. I've got one. I realise I haven't had.
What time is it?
It is only half
We're
past, so
doing
we're actually
well.
doing good
I think
time.
we're doing really well today. Yeah.
I realise we haven't had a memoir one so far, so here is one.
Well, I think we did. That thing about the United States seemed like a memoir, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's true. It said non-fiction. It probably was
It was
memoir,
probably. I
unless it
think
was
it
like
was
the
memoir.
introduction where it starts talking about, I don't know, broader themes.
Yeah, unless it's a book about like how to survive in America without falling prey to our weird cultural zeitgeist. But that's
Yeah.
going to be a long book. The raucous banter of the barbershop fell silent the moment I stepped inside, as though I'd interrupted a crucial point in a conversation, while soul music blared from a large transistor radio. So the barbershop did not fall silent if soul music blared from a large transistor radio. Those things can't happen at the same time. Like I understand you're saying the banter fell silent, but like that word silent, it it didn't, maybe it died away or something, but there's still sound, and I think establishing silence and then cueing sound is a little wonky. I would also say you do the work of the meaning of this sentence in the first phrase. The raucous banter of the barbershop fell silent the moment I stepped inside. Everything else is just saying that again or modifying it unnecessarily. I don't need any further description of what happens. You killed the vibes. We get it. You know, you walked in and everyone was like, why are you, why you? Why are you here? Something about your presence disrupted the flow of conversation. And so that is, you don't need to keep saying it. You've said it once, you know?
Cool. That
So
was
I think,
from. That was yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
no, go ahead. I also like, I don't know a lot about radios, but do transistor radios play music stations? Or I thought transistor radios were for like when the power goes out and you need to get on like a communication line. But
Transistor.
I don't,
I think transistor radios were just from a certain time. Like they used transistors to tune in. So I think this is more of a certain time rather than anything. It's not like a ham radio.
okay, yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. But transistor just means it has a dial and it's like a non-digital radio. Is that
Yeah, I think it
basically
just
what I'm
means
hearing?
like
Okay.
of yeah. I think this suggests to me that this is in the past.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well,
Uh,
I
cool.
be that
It
as it
was
may.
called The Pharmacist's Daughter, Marshallyn Smith. This is yeah from their memoir. Oh yeah, it's from memoir, so it probably was in the past.
Yeah, it's in the past. But yeah, I just think we don't need to repeat ourselves so much. Like that, we wouldn't like someone who did that to us like at the office. You know, we'd
Yeah.
be like, "Oh, there goes Barbara. She's going to tell me the same thing 14 times. Just tell me to, submit my PTO request, Just I don't
All
know
right.
where that's going.
The next one here we have here is from Eileen Cran.
Mm. As Augusta's long platinum hair rippled down the steps behind her like a waterfall, she surveyed her bowing subjects and thought, they are but brown little birds waiting to be plucked. Ooh, that gave me like a weird shiver. Wow, hair rippling down the steps like a waterfall. That's a lot of hair. That's I'm sorry it's on the ground because I bet it takes forever to dry and now you're going to have to wash it. Uh, I am confused about, so people are bowing to her, but the steps are behind her. So I guess she's walked up to some kind of platform and the hair is behind. Okay. Uh, yeah, I don't know if I don't think I'm supposed to like this person, and I don't, based on this sentence. And it's not just this very sort of visceral language of plucking birds, which sounds gross, but there's just something off-putting about her, which maybe you intended. Good job. I mean, if she's supposed to be like a little unlikable, then
Yeah,
great.
I
But
I think
if this is our protagonist, I think we're in trouble.
also I think platinum blonde hair is sort of like a byword for cold and unlikable. Like nobody's ever been described as like oh this wonderful kind platinum blonde lady. That is like one of those easy sort of shortcuts. I think.
Is it? I
I
guess
think so.
so. But
Like
okay,
people's
but like,
stepmothers have platinum blonde hair. They're sort
yeah,
of
but so does Elsa. I mean, Elsa is cold, but like
yeah, that's one.
it's because she loves so hard. And I
Yes.
know because I have a 6-year-old daughter and I've seen that movie 900 times. So, yeah, I don't know. You're right. Maybe that is a little bit of like shortcut signaling. But that's a lot. That's a lot of hair. I think a 6-year haircut. I can't get over it. Like I have pretty
But
long hair. I just cut mine, and I was like, "Oh, it's so short." My best friend was like, "Are you high? That is not short hair, you know." And I was like, "Oh, it doesn't touch my waist anymore." And she was like, "You are a woman of a certain age who shouldn't have hair that long." So,
uh,
anyway, all to say, I think I'm distracted by the length of Augusta's hair, which is a problem. Um, and she is unlikable, so good job if that was your intention. It takes us a really long time to get to her thought about her subjects. Um, so maybe you could be more efficient here. I think that might help as well. Maybe
I
talk a
think
little less about the hair.
yeah, I think they're sort of indicating the right things. It is, of course, a fantasy book called The Madness of Queens, so I think it's probably touching on the right notes there.
Okay, yeah, I think we're getting there for sure.
The next one, I haven't had a short one for a while, but this one is certainly that from an author called Knight.
Oh, it was golden hour in golden British Columbia. Uh, Fact cake. It's the golden hour here. You can see behind me. There's like this
Right?
gorgeous, um, because it will be dark here by 4:30 p.m. Of course. It was golden hour in Golden BC. Just fact cake. We need a character. Who cares? Who cares that it was golden hour? This doesn't pass our so what's next test, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it gets the job done because so what that it was golden hour anywhere. I mean, maybe your protagonist is a photographer and this is really significant, but maybe not. And if they are a photographer, then say that. Um,
It feels like this was like
we
a fun piece of wordplay that sort of felt like it was good first line material, but necessarily doesn't add anything beyond the fact that it introduces a location, I suppose.
Yeah, so like sometimes I think of this as too clever writing. It's like trying so hard to be pithy that it fails to produce adequate meaning. And I think that's what we have here. Are you there, Martin?
Sorry, I
And if you
muted
are, I
myself.
can't hear you. Oh, you
Yeah,
muted yourself.
sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
that was
thought you left me.
from Knight, young adult to assume the worst. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily. Yeah, think that's sort of young adulty, but I don't know. I'm intrigued to find out what Golden BC is like. So I don't know. Maybe there's something more to dive into there rather than the fact that it's Golden Hour. It's Golden Hour everywhere.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's more interesting if it's like, especially if it's young adult, we need to get a character in here right away. So like, you know, it was, golden hour in golden BC, but Becca's heart was withering to black or something. Like give us another color maybe,
Hmm.
or like a contrast of darkness somewhere. That could be really dynamic and interesting. But otherwise, you're right. Like, what's like, who cares? It was golden hour everywhere. Um, yeah, I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone there.
Cool.
So,
Thank you, Knight. The next one I have here is from Megan Mackenzie.
As Montana scanned the menu for the absolute cheapest things she could order for brunch, she quickly made calculations, allowing for tip but staying under the 1561 she had left in her bank account. Um, I think this is an interesting sentiment, but it's taking way too long to articulate it, right? So Montana scanned the brunch menu for the absolute. No, Montana scanned the brunch menu for a meal that, comma, allowing for tip, comma, would keep her under the 1561 she had left in her bank account. I think that would be my edit. Right? There's no, again, we've seen this a couple times today, which is stating the thing and then restating the thing, either with more specificity or the same level of specificity. Montana scanned the brunch menu for a meal that, allowing for tip, would stay under the 1561 she had left in her bank account. There you go. Getting it done, you know? Because, like, at the end of the day, this is verging on fact cake territory. We're interested in Montana. Obviously, Montana is sort of hard up for money. And of course, this begs the question, why are you at brunch? Why are you there? Why can't you just order a cup of coffee? Right. So you're inspiring some interesting questions. So it's saved from pure fact cake status, but it's close. And so I wouldn't spend more time than we have to just like articulating this same notion, which is that she doesn't have a lot of money and needs to participate in this meal without breaking the bank.
I think, yeah, the detail of tip sort of says something. They're good enough.
Yeah.
This is almost a save the cat moment. Even though they're at the lowest moment, they would never stiff the server on a tip.
Yeah, she never stiffed the server. And I think that's good. That's great. I like Montana. Whereas I like immediately didn't like, what was her name? Augusta? The queen with the hair.
The platinum blonde.
The platinum blonde. I like Montana sort of instinctively. Though I question some of her financial choices. You don't belong at brunch if you can't afford it.
Cool. Thank you very much, Megan. That was from science fiction called Settles. The next one here comes from Francis Kohler.
I, Leo Yaremchuk, better known to my shrinking fan base as spy author William K. Higgins, needed a new agent. Oh, I'm sorry, Leo. It happens to everyone. Okay. It's very dramatic, right? It's very, this like I name also named. It's very, look at me. It's very dramatic. And I think maybe there's a better way to introduce all of this information because it's a lot of information. Um, fans of my fans of William K. Higgins' spy novels would be surprised to learn that his alter ego, Leo Yarmchuk, needed a new agent. Maybe, right? Or like, I just the order of operations here, like stating this personal pronoun, then the name, then the second name, and then this little like tidbit that there's a fan base, but it's a shrinking fan base, and then it's a shrinking fan base for spy novels. It's a lot. It's a lot all at once. And so, yes, we praise specificity, but you can't overburden us with so much detail that we can't wade through. I also think this is a waste of a good M dash pair. You want to save those for when you really mean it.
Cool. That was from Francis Kohler, but still, it was something literary fiction. I've got just next one here. That's why I've forgotten who put this one in. Is from M.B. Field.
The men brought a coffin into her parents' bedroom. They lifted her father from his bed and placed him inside it. Oh, that's not how coffins work. We don't, that I don't think would happen. Right? Even if we're talking about somewhere like old timey, even if this is like Gold Rush West or some other time, the body would be removed from the house and prepared for burial. You don't go straight from the bed to the coffin. That's not a thing. And if it was a sickness, then they, like the plague, they would burn the house. So this does not, or they would extract the bodies, throw them in a cart, and then burn the body. So I don't think this really
Well, it's a fiction.
Yes, but like it has to be fiction that I believe is possible,
Yeah.
or it loses its power,
Well,
you
it
know?
could be this one. I'll tell you now is from children's fiction, so it could be sort of a sort of fairy tale-ish, baroque-ish sort of world where the undertakers do come
They
and
are
just like
not undertakers are not bringing the body directly to a coffin, and they're not bringing the coffin to the bedroom. That just doesn't even make sense. Nope.
yeah.
No. Eh.
But imagine,
I just I just had a proposal on Reedsy that I can talk about. And this person sent me a few sample pages, which I always ask for. And it was the character lived in New York, and she was getting the mail from her mailbox, and she's observing a busy street, like people are walking toward her. And I said, there are no mailboxes on the street in New York City. They're all attached to the buildings. They're either in the lobby of an apartment building, or if you have a brownstone, you have a letter slot. But there's no like standing mailbox on a post on the street in New York. That is simply not happening. Not in the city, right? Like obviously upstate New York is different. And she said, I've had dozens of readers over the years and no one has caught that. And it's one of those things where like, well, that like my initial reaction was that didn't happen. That didn't happen. No one walked toward her while she was checking her mail. There's no mailbox there. And so that's exactly what we've just had in this line, right? Like even even if it's fantasy, even if it's whatever it is, you said it's children's, maybe it is fantasy, fairy tale vibes. No one's bringing the coffin into the house. It's just not happening. Nope.
yeah, because like when you like live in any city, if there's a like I'm living in a fairly small city right now, Edinburgh. There's a bunch of films that have been shot and set here, and people just don't like them because they never respect the geography. They always go like, oh, you see a character going down a road and turning left and turning up somewhere else, and they go like, no, that's when I stopped watching. Like this place doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Right. Like unless it's fairy roads, right? I just re-listened to one of my favorite novels of all time, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, and there are fairy roads in England that get opened up again, and they are roads that they're between a little hedge, and then you are somewhere very other. But unless that's what it is, then you just have to respect that reality has limitations. So this idea that it's science fiction or it's fantasy, that doesn't break every rule of our existence here. And so for me, this line does that. It just breaks the rules in a way that makes me go, oh no, I don't trust you as a storyteller. And that's really what the problem is.
Question here from this is just more of an admin thing. Tony says missed the beginning. Can they watch the recording? Yes, you can actually go right now and
Yes.
zoom to the beginning if you like. I think you can just scrub back. However, we've got 10 more minutes. I reckon we can get through a good
Let's
chunk
do it.
more. Here is one from Noah Grant.
The army transport truck rose and fell with the narrow dirt road as it sliced through the thick jungle, growling like a large cat as its driver downshifted and missed the intended gear. This is about a truck. This is about a truck.
Yeah,
I
spell a little truck you could. Well, no, it's from mystery thriller suspense. It's like yeah.
Right. Well, sadly, the mystery thriller suspense, if it's not about the truck, then this is the wrong place to begin. Like a truck driving on a road is not interesting. And the sounds trucks make are also not interesting to adults, unless they're like explodey sounds, right? Like, this is not interesting. This is not the right place to begin. No.
I mentioned to Becca just before this that every time we do one of these, there are certain patterns that turned up. Like I think we have one where everyone woke up from a start, and then later on there was always one where it's like the crazy thing about me, dear reader, that you don't understand is the fact that I'm dead all along. And this one, for some reason, there's just something in the air where there was actually a lot of submissions, all describing like the sound of a car and the feel of being in a car with the specificity of the name of the car. Like there's something in the zeitgeist right now where people like, the characters are
They really
starting
want
for
to talk
Chevy
about
Plymouth.
cars.
I don't know what it is. Maybe there's something that's happened in media that has just put people in this car state of mind.
Can you do the voice?
In this one, Charles went down the freeway in his 63 Chevy Nova. That's when I think of like Americans talking about cars. Everyone sounds like Tom Waits. Anyway, So for this one, I'm going back to it. I realize we have only got a few more.
That's exactly how I sound when I talk about my Honda CRV. I just go instant Tom Waits, instant. If anyone who doesn't know that Honda CRV is a total mom car, so that's why it's funny. Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. This is the wrong place to start. We're not going to start with the truck or the sounds it makes or the fact that it is driving. That is not remarkable.
Uh, let's see. I'm gonna sorry, I'm just trying to find one that's a little bit different.
Did we go so fast today that we got through all of your pre-selected?
I know I had like a bunch, but they're sort of covering similar. I'm now noticing they cover similar territory. Here is one from Samuel George, London.
Okay. Stepping out of the express elevator, I took a quick security scan of the immediate vicinity and launched a micro drone. Oh, hmm. Bit of a fact cake. I think stepping out of an elevator is kind of a snooze. I think I think launching the micro drone is where this sentence should start. Though my initial security scan revealed an empty hallway, I launched a micro drone to, like, what are you looking for? Why are you doing any of this? If we could get some of that in line one, I think that would be a very good addition. So get the micro drone closer, nix this thing about the elevator, and no one cares how you got to the hallway, and tell us what you're looking for
Like
or what you're worried you'll find.
the immediate vicinity feels like an opportunity to actually establish a location.
Yeah. Like, well, it's a hallway. If you stepped out of an elevator, you're in a hallway. Where else would you be? I guess a penthouse, maybe, right?
Or sometimes they're outside, like on the outside of a building. Sometimes.
I'm sorry, what? Is this a UK thing? We have elevators that go to the outside of a building?
Yeah, sometimes like you can sort of get it from outside. Well, I'm speaking specifically in Asia, Singapore. I'm pretty sure I've seen a bunch of lifts that go from
Okay,
the
but there's
outside.
like cool stuff there that is very okay.
If
Fair,
this is
fair
science
enough.
fiction, this is
That's
the
like
future. They're micro drones,
okay.
and there's a good chance that an elevator could go to not a hallway.
Could go to space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't talk about the elevator. Just talk about where we are and what we are looking for.
Cool. We've got. I can get a few more in here. This one's from Tessa.
Oof. The ballroom was alive with dancing bodies. So tightly packed together that getting slapped in the face by twirling arms and legs was a regular occurrence, but they danced with glistening sweat and aching limbs. The dancers danced because to stop dancing was to welcome death. If I stop reading that sentence, I might keel over. That's a long one. Um, so the only interesting part of this is that if they stop dancing, they die. I The rest is like borderline unhinged. If I had to dance and I had to keep dancing so I wouldn't die, you can be sure I would not waste my energy on like movements that would slap someone in the face with my leg. If like you got to conserve energy. We're in this for the long haul. We're on this dance floor for the long haul. We're not slapping each other in the face. We're all doing the middle school shuffle. We're bopping. I don't think we're slapping each other in the face with legs. How? Who's swing dancing here? It's a terrible waste of energy. You're going to need a break soon. You'll be dead. So, again, in this world where the end of dance means death, I still don't believe that this is how things go there. I don't believe you. There.
Sorry,
To
this is
mute
from
yourself again. Yeah.
Tessa's The Story of Elizabeth and Esna Action Adventure. I keep doing myself. Ever since someone mentioned that, like, we can hear you drinking, Martin. Like, I've like always like whenever I take like
Martin
a
is
sip of
allowed to
water.
be human. He's allowed to be human and have a sip of water. That's fine.
Okay, we have two more. Let's do two more at least.
Okay, we can do
Here we
this.
go.
We can do it. We can do it. Those of us who heard the screams didn't immediately rush outside. Oh, yeah, I like that. I have no notes. I think this is a good line. Like, what is happening? Why didn't they rush outside? Where were they? All good questions. Yep, good job. Next.
Cool. Joan Dempsey, well done. This is from their general fiction. She must have done something. Here's their next one. It is a memoir.
When I was a kid, the FBI had a way of ruining things. A great one. Another great opening. Um, that's wonderful. I think that's really nice. You could do it other ways, right? You could make it more complicated. Like there are many ways to complicate this sentiment, but you've chosen a really direct route, and I think that's fine. I want to believe that the next line is something like case in point, my fifth birthday party, you know?
Hmm.
So I think this is great. And for a memoir, phenomenal.
Cool. Let me see who actually did this. FBI. That was Catherine M. McCulloch. Kids make the best bookies. Wow, that is also a great title. Well, sort of.
A
It hints at
phenomenal
something
title.
good.
Really, really good. Yeah. Just firing on all cylinders there. So I'm looking at the time. We have 3 minutes. So are there any questions from the peanut gallery that you want to pluck and give to me?
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
do you just want me to talk about where people can find me on Reedsy?
Well, why don't you talk about where people can find you on Reedsy? If anyone has a question, we can answer like one or two before we call it, because Becca's got to pack for a
Okay.
holiday.
I do have to pack for a holiday. And like, there's just so many things happening this week at my kids' school. So you can find me on Reedsy. You can search for me, Rebecca Heyman. You will find me quickly. I am currently booking into mid-February and early March 2025. So if you are feeling that like urgent desire to get your book edited, we're going to have to pump the brakes a little bit. But I'm currently open, of course, to inquiries, and I would love to hear from you about your literary fiction, your contemporary fiction, your romance, your YA. I'm going to take a pass on sci-fi, horror, and unfortunately memoir. I'm not open to memoir right now. So give me your adult fiction in most genres and your YA fiction in most genres as well. And perhaps we can work together in February or March-ish.
Okay, I got a couple of questions coming in. This one is sort of like I guess it depends what day they catch you. But if you were to say
Nigel,
like what makes a good opening line, Nigel asks.
Nigel, my treasure. Have I I think there's something like 300 hours of First Line Frenzy content between my Instagram and YouTube. So I'm gonna say I've answered this a couple times before, and I'm gonna let you deep dive the archives and figure it out. There's a lot of things that make a good opening line, and I guess what I would ask you is, based on the last hour, what do you think goes into a good opening line? This is a show don't tell exercise where we're trying to show what strengthens lines, right, and what is appealing about certain lines. So I'm gonna toss that question back to you, Nigel. I think you're gonna figure it out.
Avi asks, "What's your Christmas wish?" Oh,
Well, um, well, I am Jewish, so they're Hanukkah wishes. But I think, well, okay, so if you follow my Instagram, then you know that I wished for a second cat, like a companion for Prim. A lot of you know Prim. And so my husband was like, yeah, okay, like you can get another cat because I turned 40 in February. It's kind of a big birthday. And so I was so worried that he was going to change his mind that I, like, within 4 days had secured a new Siberian cat. So I got my greatest wish, which was to have a second cat. He's a little shy, so he's not here now, but his name is Finnick.
oh, this is staying on
It's
theme.
another, yes, staying on theme, right? If you recall, Finnick Odair was good friends with Madge, who was like an older, kind of kooky lady in the Hunger Games. And I hope that my Finnick O'Hare, will also be good friends with my slightly kooky, crazy lady, old lady, Prem.
Rick Stabile asked me to do the American accent again. What's he building in there? What's he making?
You sound like Batman. You could take that to the silver screen. I think that you have Batman aspirations. I think that's your secret Christmas wish.
Tell me, tell me.
Say I am vengeance.
I'm vengeance. We have got one more. Is there anything specific to the fantasy genre that is hard to do or don't do for an opening? I guess there are a lot of sort of tropes
Yes.
that are kind of overdone.
There are. One of the main fantasy tropes that I think I don't like to see is the cosmology of your world. We see this in science fiction too, but like, taking me back to the creation story of the world is a total snooze. I mean, maybe that becomes relevant later on, If you read in the Sarah J. Maas universe, then you know that the creation stories are important and they are really like germane to understanding the primary conflict. But don't take us there in line one. It's exhausting and very tiresome.
Turns out my voice was a hit. Karen says, have I ever done TV advert voiceovers? I'll tell you this. Back at school in Singapore, I actually did continuity announcing for the Discovery Channel for like a month because they were looking for natural American accents and I could pretend. And so like my big things were...
at all.
Yeah.
I think
and so
you have a great voice.
I had things like, hey, coming up next, Discovery Kids, more show about dinosaurs. Or like, we've got letters coming in from Sanjay from Bangalore asking, do you have more dinosaur shows? Of course we do. We got loads.
Are there audiobook narrators on Reedsy? Do we have narrators on Reedsy?
We're looking to get them. It's hard because there's a lot of competition there right now. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I can supplement my income. We have Don asking, can we have a query session on query letter soon? We very well may do. We may get Becca's friend and our friend, John Darger, to maybe do one at some point. But we just recently had a big old querying day, which went really well. We're looking to have another one a bit later in the year. Thanks,
maybe
Rebecca.
John or Jen. Yeah, we'll get someone on here with me, an agent, to do that with me. I would love that.
There's a question here from Jared. I think everyone else in the crowd can probably answer this one. There's never snow in the background. It's just a white picket fence.
It's just a white fence. It might be snow soon. We are in New England. Can we get a session on last lines? No, you can't. No, because last lines are they're a different beast, and like they so often close the circle of narrative that to examine them at the front end is like too spoilery. So like there's too much. The whole novel contributes to why the last line lands, and so there is no situation where I would be able to provide accurate or even valuable feedback about a last line, because there's just so you've brought us through this whole book, and then we've landed in this place, this sort of cathartic last line, and so there's no way really to like assess them.
Yeah, there's, it would be like, the title of the book is Lord of the Flies, and the final line is, and that is how we became the Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, so I think that would be really hard. I just don't think I would be able to provide any value. So in the interest of always seeming like I know what I'm talking about, I would have to decline the last line review.
We did a thing, I can't remember whether it was with you, maybe not, but where we did like line editing on like a first paragraph, and it was just a thing that just took forever.
It takes so long. It takes so long. When I taught, Reedsy sent me to Sweden over the summer to teach at the Stockholm Writers Festival, which was a blast. And I did look at voice, tone, and style on first pages. And I got through like 6 samples in over an hour. I think it was a 2-hour workshop. We looked at maybe 6 samples. It really is incredibly time consuming and very difficult to do, I think, not like in person. There's something, I don't know. It became an interactive audience participation thing. And so I think that would be very hard.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the end of this. Becca, it's been a real pleasure. I know it's been like 7-8 months since we had the last one, but let's definitely do this one sooner rather than later. I'll book you in as soon as you get back from your vacay. Okay. So you heard Becca's got some potential openings. So if you've got something you think she'd like, do get them in before long. She does book up, so this is a rare opportunity. I hope you have a restful break, and to all of you watching at home, there's the camera. I hope you do too. There's a lot of great stuff we have lined up for 2025, and however you choose to celebrate your holidays, I want to wish you the best of it. Becca, any last words?
No, I mean, thanks for being here. Happy New Year to everyone, and happiest holidays to those who observe winter holidays. And I appreciate the community here. You can find a lot of First Line Frenzy content on Instagram. You can follow me at Rebecca Heyman. Faith is just my middle name. I get a lot of questions generally after these about why that is my handle. It's just my middle name. And I guess that's it. Thanks for being here. And I wish you all the best in 2025. Keep writing.
All right. See you soon. Bye.